I am 100% behind Q. He's working for the president. He's working for our country.
Alien life, like pedophiles, and it just seeks to tie all of that together.
Welcome, listeners, to the 20th chapter of the QAnon Anonymous podcast, the Rothschilds episode. We are your hosts, Jake Rockatansky,
Travis Few,
Toots, and Julian Field. This week, we will be tackling the most notorious family name in the history of time. Yes, even more evil, corrupt, and world-destroying than the Clintons, the Bushes, the Kennedys, and the Kellogg cereals. The Rothschilds have a special place in the QAnon universe, and we'll be unpacking some of that. But we'll also attempt to give some sort of balanced view of the family and just how much power they have over the average scrub like Jake and Jake. Finally, we'll be joined by Talia Lavin, writer, researcher, and self-professed Jewish person who knows a lot about anti-Semitism. She will help us get to the bottom of the QAnon obsession with triple parentheses, Jewish people. But before that, some updates. I am sick this week, and that is why my voice sounds like this. And why these boys are going to have a bad week ahead.
Yeah, I'm really not looking forward to that.
I'm really hoping that this pop filter filters out illness as well, for your sake.
I got my flu shot. I'm not scared. Bring it on.
That's true. You're a family man. You do stuff like getting Q shots.
I can't afford health care.
I'm so sick and my brain is so feverish that I just called it a Q shot. In community news, our Qbot, a wonderful little thing built for us by listener Repton, continues to tear it up with the community. Folks, everybody loves those drops, and some of us even love them enough to feed them back out into the QAnon community. That's right. If you have burner accounts or whatever, please do send as many of those drops out there. The drops, if you don't know, are basically pieced together from old drops that the bot has studied, and it's uncanny. And then once in a while, if you're lucky, you'll get the name Julian, Travis, or Jake spat out, which happened after like 100 drops. I finally got my name to be dropped, and it was just asking questions about me, and
Yeah, it's so amazing how authentic it feels that it makes me wonder if like the real QAnon is just like some programmed bot.
Yeah,
It's gotta be. Yeah, I one of the fake drops I sort of released on Twitter had the phrase "spray taint," and so I was curious. And they actually decoded it. They tied it to Podesta.
They baked it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Clearly, Podesta sprays his taint with cooking oil before every child molestation. QAnon news.
First up, Q shocks the QAnon community by denying that JFK Jr. is alive. So in a Q&A session on December 12th, Q spent some time on 8chan trying to shut down the crazier theories in the QAnon community. In it, Q confirmed that the world is not flat, Seth Rich is dead, Julian Assange is not in the US, and most shockingly, JFK Jr. is not, in fact, alive. However, despite the fact that Q was explicitly asked, is JFK Jr. alive? And Q said, no, that's N-O, period. No ambiguity, no cryptic message. It was very, very simple.
Yeah.
Some people in the community continue to believe that JFK is alive anyway. So it's really, really nuts. They don't care anymore. Q was losing control.
Dude, this is a Frankenstein situation.
Yeah.
So in related news, an independent researcher uncovered the real person behind the account, the Twitter account, the real R Anon. Listeners of our last episode may remember that this was an account that fraudulently pretends to be Vincent Fusca, who many Q followers absurdly believe is the living JFK Jr. This research discovered that the person behind the real R Anon is one Ray Parrish, a former Green Party congressional candidate. Shortly after the research was published, the real R Anon account was deleted, but it looks like it's since been restored and continues to basically commit identity theft against Vincent Fusca. And I tweeted about this development, and the real R Anon has since blocked me on Twitter.
That's so good. I think he just maybe realized, like, there are no consequences.
Yeah.
Just for anything anymore, so it doesn't matter.
It feels like he was like talked back into it. He was like, I've been caught. And like his other grifter
wait
buddies.
Wait a second, you folded because of these cucks?
Yeah, right. But like, oh, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just keep going. And then he keeps going. And yeah, people keep believing that he's Vincent Fusca / JFK Jr.
Disclaimer, Jake may or may not have contacted that account to make sure it got back online out of desperation. He needs this to be true.
Well,
Jake is in a bathtub with a razor.
yes.
Second up, an outgoing city council member reads a Q drop from the city council floor.
God
can't
damn
believe
it.
it.
This story
We're not going to be able to keep this as a
destroys me.
comedy podcast for very
This
long.
is, this
Are
is
we?
getting really disturbing. So during a farewell speech on December the 10th, San Juan Capistrano, California city council member Pam Patterson,
Which
Made up
sounds like
name.
a fucking fake
Made up
name.
name.
No.
That's the name that you give like your buxom spy character if you're a right-wing douchebag.
Pam Patterson, she basically read a Q drop like it's scripture and then said, where we go one, we go all, and also God bless Q. And so this is the very first known instance of an elected official explicitly endorsing Q like while in office. And there's a video of the incident that I would like to share.
Oh, yes,
honestly,
please.
honestly, if God was asleep and had abandoned humanity, he just woke up with his eyes in a startle and went, "Wait, what just happened? They just thanked me for what?" And he stayed asleep through the Iraq War. He stayed asleep through the Crusades, motherfuckers.
Yeah, now he stumbled out of bed with a large erect penis.
And he just went, "Who the fuck is Vincent Fosca?"
And now to quote Q, number 2436. For far too long we have been silent and allowed our bands of strength that we once formed to defend freedom and liberty to deteriorate. We became divided. We became weak. We elected traitors to govern us. We allowed evil to prey on us. Those who claimed to represent us gave us false hope, made false promises. The evil and corruption only grew. We must rise again. We must unite again. We must fight again for God and country. God bless America. Where we go one, we go all. Q. Her preservation. It was an
my
honor
God.
to serve you. God bless America. God bless Q, and God bless San Juan Capistrano. Thank you.
Damn, San Juan Capistrano was fucking blessed.
Hold on, Pat.
Wait,
you're not done
why,
yet.
why are people allowing her to continue? I looked at the other people in the room. There's a guy like shuffling his papers.
Have you
and
never
another-
been to a council meeting? I mean, they literally don't care. No one cares anymore. It's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah, but I just want to emphasize that this really is a new level of horror. Now, fortunately, this was someone who was outgoing, right?
Right.
But still, this is someone, an elected official in a city council chamber. It's just in a building that's meant for government business, quoting Q like scripture. It's insanity.
She's just like letting her freak flag fly, you know? She's kind of like, hey, this is me. You know, it's like when the graduating senior class, you know, like moons everybody at their graduation ceremony or whatever. I think she's just doing the same. I think she's probably been cued. And, you know, she saw this as an opportunity. The funny thing is people clap afterwards. There's like kind of a smattering of light
that's
applause.
because they've listened to about 4 words. They're like, God bless America. Awesome. Yes. Clap. It's over. Okay. Next.
They don't care.
I mean, no, they're just at a ceremony and they clap when the fucking clap sign goes on. But what blows my mind is that she has the exact same voice that you read the Shopping Network stuff with.
Yeah, I know.
This kind of bizarre, like,
I'm strangely tapped into this community somehow.
yeah, it's almost like you're one of them.
Yeah, weird.
So, another QAnon news, but D13, you know, it's like,
Yeah, D13 came and went.
Came and
Yeah.
went.
Yeah.
All it
came
was my fucking birthday, bitch. And what happened? Nothing.
nothing. And and Huber was supposed to testify at this hearing, and he was a no-show.
No show.
He literally didn't show up. Joe M had to Photoshop Pepe in his seat. And then his next post was like trying to cope, you know, just being like, it makes sense that he's not there, okay? Motherfuckers, it's tactical.
Yeah. Also, there was like however many hours about like the Clinton Foundation, and there's literally nothing newsworthy about it. It just kind of came and went, and
Yeah, it was
weird.
None of us could have predicted that except me and Travis.
I mean, the only thing that happened is that there was a couple of what they called forensic accountants. These weren't whistleblowers. These were outside people, and they claimed that they knew that the Clinton Foundation was evading taxes and it should have registered as a foreign agent.
Of course.
But they didn't. And then Mark Meadows, if you watch the hearing, yelled at these guys because they wouldn't give up their documents. It was like, well, can we see the documents that prove this? Oh, we can't do that because like apparently they had provided it to the FBI. The IRS.
Imagine if Hillary Clinton had fucked a male gigolo who basically was acting as a prostitute and then tried to pay him hush money before the election. I mean,
You would never find out about it.
okay, but wouldn't they try to hang her for it or whatever? They've been scrounging for something way less damning.
They would. I actually didn't. I listened to a couple of the highlights from the thing, and it just looked like bureaucratic, like bullshit. It was just like
It's disappointing to all involved. And so, so the new date, of course, they're waiting for January 1st.
Right.
So this is when new rules about military tribunals are supposed to go into effect.
Of course, yes.
Right.
So
Everyone knows that.
This is when Matt Christman will be forced to delete his account.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So D13 is gone. J1. This is the new date.
J1.
It's all getting
Matt
done.
Chrisman, by the way, you can just give me your account. It has about 80K. That's decent. That's okay. I'll take it. And I'll switch the name to the real Qanon. And it's the grift has begun, baby.
Yeah.
So that's an open invitation, Matt. Next up, we'll be moving on to the overview of the QAnon Rothschilds theory.
Hell yeah.
That's Q.
So-
Q's with us.
Yeah, hell yeah. I want to hear about these Rothschilds.
Well, the real life Rothschild family is a banking dynasty.
what? I knew it.
That began
Conspiracy was right.
It began with the German Jewish banker Mayer Amschel Rothschild in the late 18th century. And he became a successful banker in part through offering banking services to the German Crown Prince Wilhelm of Hesse. In the 18th and 19th century, Mayer Rothschild's descendants expanded upon the dynasty and the family wealth by offering banking services in Vienna, London, Naples, and Paris. And in the 19th century, they are by far the wealthiest family in the world.
Yes.
So just a review. So this family is very wealthy, and they do business in multiple countries, and they have close relationships with royalty and other powerful people, and they're very secretive and insular. And to put the cherry on top of all of it, they are Jewish.
My God.
It's a perfect storm.
Yeah, how are they allowed to exist?
So this is
And they walk the earth unharmed. This is awful.
Unbelievable.
so just a perfect recipe for conspiracy theories, and there were a lot of them for 2 centuries basically.
Yeah.
And so anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about the Rothschilds were popular among lots of circles, but they really brought into wider circulation in 1846. And that year, an anonymous pamphlet printed in Paris, which was signed by Satan, claimed that
Checks out.
yeah, right. Claimed that Nathan Rothschild, who founded the London branch, profited from the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. It claimed falsely that Nathan Rothschild was a spectator on the Waterloo battlefield and observed the total defeat of the French army. He then allegedly rushed to London a day before the news became known in England and exploited his advanced knowledge to make a killing on the stock exchange.
Oh my God, you guys. He's Biff from Back to the Future.
Whoa.
Crazy.
Fuck you, Marty. Take this Waterloo money. He's like, oh, I've been banging your mother for 40 years, Marty.
Horse-drawn carriage enters into contact with like another carriage carrying horse shit. Gets dumped down onto the Rothschild.
I hate manure.
This pamphlet was actually written by the open anti-Semite Georges Danville, and almost nothing in the story is true. Nathan Rothschild was not even at Waterloo or even in Belgium at the time of the battle.
Damn, disappointing.
So, in referring
Also
to...
disappointing that it wasn't really written by Satan. That would have been a really good literary career.
In referring to the conspiracy about Nathan Rothschild, political scientist Michael Barkun, in his 2003 book, A Culture of Conspiracy, said, quote, although this type of speculation was widespread throughout anti-Semitic circles in the late 19th and 20th century, it was notably strong in the United States, where radicals of every stripe seemed obsessed by financial conspiracies. So really, by continuing these conspiracy theories about the Rothschilds, the QAnon community is really advancing a great American tradition. We've been doing it for hundreds of years.
That's right.
Somebody's got to do it.
Hamburgers and anti-Semitism.
Yep.
Here's what QAnon people believe. The deep state is bad, but they aren't the puppet masters of the world. The people who really pull the strings are 3 entities: the Saudi royal family, the Rothschilds, and George Soros. So these are sometimes called the triangle of puppeteers. So here's what Q says in a November 11th, 2017 Q drop.
Who are the puppet masters? House of Sod, 6 minus 4 trillion plus. Rothschild, 6 dash 2 trillion plus. Soros, 6 plus. What the fuck is this shit? What's with the pluses and the goddamn? I can't even make out what my boy's trying to tell me here.
It's just bad. It's just if the information is just false, you just add a plus.
Soros, 6 dash 1 trillion plus. Focus on above 3. As if you didn't know there were 3 people above.
Focus on the Arabs and the Jews.
Public wealth disclosures. False.
So, so these are the people in the QAnon universe who use their enormous accumulated wealth to pull the strings of politicians and elites all over the world.
And guess what? We have nabbed famous, obsessive Saudi Arabian nerd Felix Biederman, and hopefully he'll be on a future episode coming up soon where we will deal with the House of Saud.
So how exactly do the Rothschilds exert this influence? Well, QAnon people believe that the Rothschild family has a controlling interest in a vast network of central and private banks all over the world. In a few November 11th, 2017 Q drops, Q lists like every single national bank in alphabetical order, and then claims that the Rothschilds owns or controls all of them. And this is, I want to be very clear, false. This is not true. The Rothschilds.
Yeah.
We will talk.
I'm definitely not going to read this entire Q
No,
drop
don't
because
do
it is so, my vocal cords will look like a 2-week-old spaghetti squash
okay, but
if I do this.
This is literally the only reason everyone signed up for Patreon.
Fuck, okay, here we go. Rothschilds owned and controlled banks. Afghanistan, Bank of Afghanistan. Albania, Bank of Albania. I'm seeing a pattern here. Algeria, Bank of Algeria. Argentina, Central Bank of Argentina.
Yeah.
Wait.
Armenia, Central Bank of Armenia.
Wait, is this just the A, B's, and C's in this post?
This is just
Aruba.
the A, B's, and C's.
Aruba, Central Bank of Aruba.
Q does this for several Q drops. Just
Australia,
every single bank in the world.
Reserve Bank of Australia.
This is why the Qbot keeps spitting out bank names, just randomly interspersed.
That's right.
What the fuck? I mean, why is he telling the country? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
He just
like,
copy
once he says
pasted
that-
all the national banks.
Yeah.
They own everything.
This is literally a list that was like circulating around in like anti-Semitic circles, and Q literally just copied and pasted.
a
Q
little
drops.
copy pasta, as the kids say.
Yeah.
But the influence of the Rothschilds is more than just financial. They QAnon people believe that the Rothschilds are actually the head of a Satan-worshipping cult.
Yeah.
So this was illustrated in a November 21st, 2017 Q drop, which featured a photo of Marie Helene de Rothschild
Oh, hells yeah.
and Guy de Rothschild at a party they hosted in Paris in 1972.
This is some Yellow King shit right here.
In this photo, the hostess Baroness Rothschild is seen in a fur-trimmed white dress and a stag's head that appears to be crying diamond tears. So this is like, so the stag's head like covers her entire head, and the horns of the stag, it looks like to be decorated with like gold or something.
It just looks like an indie album cover.
It is weird. So-
Yeah, or like an indie horror movie or some shit like that. I mean, this picture is kind of fucked up. I'm not gonna lie, it's weird.
What the so and the photo file in this the photo file in this Q drop is rothschildsymbolism.jpg, and one thing I do kind of agree with the QAnon community is that rich people, they throw weird parties. They're
They
weird,
fucking
weird stuff.
are so bored, and they have no more connection with reality. So
Right.
yeah, eventually they make their wives wear stag heads to
like-
still get it up. You know.
Ellen, you take this head of the stag and you
Ellen,
put the diamonds on the face of it.
Tonight I am hunting you. You are my crying stag. I will drive a hot poker through your body and make love to you.
But first, tell somebody we've run out of deviled eggs. Get the help to bring another platter.
You know what this looks like? This just looks like a wealthier version of the Overlook Hotel.
The Rothschild sort of, I guess, storyline was like really more prominent early in the Q phenomenon. So in fact, there were even a few Q drops like in December of 2017 that just said hashtag fly Roths fly hashtag.
Yeah.
And the implication, or what the anons took away from it, is like, oh, the alliance, the white hats, they have the Rothschilds on the run in some unknown secret way.
Give us a quick rundown for a listener who might have just jumped on about the white hats and the black hats
Yes,
in the
yeah.
QAnon
So
universe.
it's like in the QAnon universe, they imagine that there's a battle between like the white hats. This is the good people in government who are close to Donald Trump, usually like work in military, who are doing battle with the black hats. These are the bad people in government, and also the cabal, which is a worldwide sort of cult of people who really run the world. They imagine. And so on February 5th, Q called attention to the sale of a Rothschild hunting lodge in Black Forest, Austria. So the implication of this drop is that because the Rothschilds are selling off their property because they're losing wealth and power. And this is what this Q drop said.
Damn. Wait, this means Q scooped 1945.
Q writes, Black Forest, Austria, Rothschild. Fire sale days after post. What went on there? Dopey. I'm not. That's real. That's real.
One of the 7 dwarves.
Dopey. You have more than you know. Q.
Man.
So Black Forest refers to a 13,000 acre Austrian hunting estate, which the Rothschild heirs sold this year to the Austrian Prinzhorn family.
Let's be clear. We all agree that there was human hunting on that property. We're not arguing that these rich people are good. Or that any of this is fun.
It's funny. That was the speculation that a lot of QAnon people were going.
course.
It's like, what went
Most
on there?
dangerous game.
There must be hunting humans in Austria.
Duh. That's what Hard Target starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
But everyone knows the reality is that they actually shred a fox every day by using about 18 hounds and a bunch of blunderbusses or whatever they're shooting up
for sure. Oh yeah, for sure. And they're
before they go back up to their offices and fucking inject laudanum.
Yeah, they have like tiny little like wooden tooths that have a hollowed out cavern for really good cocaine.
Everybody enjoys a good fox hunt until the women get the vapors and we have to bring them back to the mansion.
Yes, now if the gentlemen would join me in my lounge, we will be smoking a child penis and eating cheese.
As we all know, the shredded fox must now be eaten by the youngest of us.
Yes, and we will use its claws to carve a Star of David into your chest.
What a party.
The very last Q drop to mention the Rothschilds was on April 4th, 2018. Which is really strange when you think about it, because Q sold these people as like the puppet masters.
They own
of the
every
world.
single bank, and then he switched to
And they were
Soros.
there was like, oh, forget about them. Like
He had them pegged as twice as rich as Soros somehow, and then ditched the entire thing.
Yeah, it's like it wasn't selling.
Yeah,
maybe
no
Q read the
traction.
room. Like,
Yeah.
this audience doesn't like the Rothschild stuff. They like the Soros stuff. A little more
better.
immediate.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's like, wait, what's the
Rothschild. Nobody had. There's no specific Rothschild whose face they can take and turn into like a demon for memes and stuff.
They're just like, wait, you want me to hate the Monopoly man?
Yeah, Soros just so happens to look like fucking an aging Emperor Palpatine anyways. So he just makes for a fucking good villain.
But who really does look like evil and sometimes is a villain in the Rothschilds world is Lord Jacob Rothschild. I see him sometimes. Sometimes see memes of him, and they sometimes accuse him of having just an insane amount of wealth, like $5 trillion or something.
Oh, really? What does he look like? Does he look like
does
kind of a little
he does look pretty
Fauntleroy?
old, but he looks like sad, old, and decrepit, not like villainous. Like this guy's not a threat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
I feel like
energized
some
like
of them,
Soros.
some of them haven't figured out the tech vampire thing where you
yes.
get the teenage blood shot into you. Listen to our Adrenochrome episode if you want to know about the real story about a tech entrepreneur who's put together a company that a lot of rich people use to shoot up teenage blood.
Yes, this
so
is
they can
not a joke.
extend their lives. I wish I was
Pretty
kidding.
horrifying.
No, but this
I don't know what to
podcast
say.
has taken us to strange and scary places
Yep.
from which we wish we could, some of us wish we could return.
Yeah, like friendship with Jake.
So this was the very last Q drop about the Rothschilds on April 4th, 2018.
List the estimated wealth of religious organizations. Billions. Vatican Bank, 229 billion. Board of Superintendents. Supervisory Commission of Cardinals. Clown Connection. 1832 Rothschild loan to the Holy See. Q.
Does he always use the next to last line to say something weird? Like the
does.
last one was dopey. This one was clown connection.
This,
That's CIA.
Yes, that's
clowns.
right.
Clowns in America.
that's
Is
right.
the acronym for CIA.
that's right. Yes. He says clowns in America several Q drops.
It seems like he left himself a note to do something here. He's like, list the estimated wealth of religious organizations, and then just never took his own note. He just left it there.
So this Q drop, the last one, is about the Rothschilds, refers to a real 1832 loan negotiated by James Mayer de Rothschild to the Vatican Holy See. At the time, the Vatican doing business with the Rothschilds was controversial because people thought that it put the Catholic Church under Jewish control.
Can't have that.
No, then I think that's the rule. You do business with a Jew once, they own you for life and all
Yes.
your ancestors.
That's how it works.
Yes, exactly. The boy who lent me a piece of Bazooka Joe chewing gum in the late
1950s.
80s. In the late 80s, I keep his soul next to my bed. I turn it around when I masturbate.
Right.
You heard it here first. Jake turns around this ghost to masturbate to its bottom.
Not what I meant, but fine.
So the Rothschilds as puppet masters narrative is really important to the QAnon image of Donald Trump as independent from cabal influence.
Right.
So here's a QAnon meme that basically accuses past presidents. Here's a QAnon meme that accuses past presidents of being Rothschild puppets, and that kind of really illustrates that kind of thinking.
All right, I'm going to read this, but guys, if it looks like I'm getting red pill, just fucking slap me across
right,
the
yeah.
face and pull me
Okay.
back.
We got
Yeah.
a glass
Okay.
of water right here.
Who are the Rothschilds? Do some research. Expand your thinking. Bill Clinton, Rothschild puppet, helped Rothschild deep state puppet regime North Korea develop nuclear power program, sold them nuclear secrets.
Wait, North Korea's a
Didn't Bill Clinton? Yeah, isn't that a kind of a thing though that Clinton actually did do some sort of give North Korea some kind of nuclear advancement? Like it was under something else. Like obviously it wasn't so that they would one day nuke us back. But
And it has nothing to do with the Rothschilds, which is what this entirely is about.
okay, I will stop that. I will not.
He almost got red pilled on the
that out.
first president. The first president, Jake.
You can edit
You
that
almost got
out.
red pilled on the first president.
Okay, the next one. George Bush, Rothschild puppet, helped Rothschild deep state by fabricating evidence to start Iraq war, enacting Patriot Act and restricting human rights in U.S. to help facilitate takeover of U.S. by Rothschild globalists /UN. But didn't George Bush indeed lie us into the Iraq war and
Yep. Again,
and make the Patriot Act?
not
so that
wrong, but
they
has
could-
nothing to do with the Rothschilds, which is what this is
Zionist.
about. Please don't do this to
Yeah.
yourself, Jake.
Fuck,
You
I'm
can
having
do
a
it.
real hard time.
Fucking
Thanks, I needed
get
that.
it together.
Barack Hussein Obama, Rothschild puppet, promised to end the wars and close Gitmo. Instead, helped Rothschild deep state to further Middle East wars, almost achieving their takeover of Syria. Helped Rothschild controlled axis of evil puppet states Iran and North Korea with huge cash, technology, and uranium-1 nuclear mats. Mats is short for materials. I only know that because I play MMOs. And then there's a picture of Donald Trump with his small thumb. I mean, his hand looks so fucking small. It looks like it's photoshopped on with his like small bulbous thumb, thumbs upping me while I sit. While I sit
I can't
here and
believe
read this.
we have Jake oscillating between red pilled and wine mom lib.
And then there's on the picture there's the hashtag the Great Awakening, hashtag QAnon, hashtag MAGA. And then under the picture of Trump in big red letters, it says, not a Rothschild puppet. So it's like Rothschild puppet, Rothschild puppet,
Not a
Rothschild
Rothschild
puppet,
puppet.
not a Rothschild puppet.
I just want to, I would love to have someone explain to me how the Rothschilds would profit from, quote, taking over Syria. Like how, that is a mess. No one wants to own that.
Dude, don't you know? It's the guy who runs Syria bombs it. And
Well, yeah, the old canard is that the Rothschilds caused wars, or they encouraged wars because they could finance both sides.
Right.
They basically they profited from the destruction of countries. This was the conspiracy theory.
And it's partially true in that they did profit from war, like every single financier in the history of capitalism.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks to say. However, the idea that they caused the wars and funded both sides is way more questionable.
So really, that's all there is to the Rothschilds in the QAnon universe. They're spiritual, financial puppet masters of the world, controlling world leaders, causing wars, and advancing globalism. But Donald Trump is free from the influence of the Rothschilds, which is why he is helping take down the global cabal, which includes the Rothschilds.
Guys, for original thinkers, they sound a little bit like NPCs saying Jewish man bad.
Yeah. This is a 2-century-old story.
But I mean that totally plays in with the reason why I think people who love Donald Trump love him. I think that's one of the reasons they love him is that in their opinion, because he hasn't been in politics for his entire life, they do feel like that for whatever reason he is out from under the regular control that anybody who is in politics is.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that he's completely, interwoven, and one of the worst examples of capitalism in its kind of calcified, shitty state where you have meritless people who are completely incapable, given chance after chance when everyone else, gets sick once and they're fucked.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on a little bit. What is the truth about the Rothschilds? Well, it all started with the, quote, court Jews, which is not a term that we're inventing and also not a term that we endorse using in your everyday. Don't go to the mall and call someone a court Jew just because he's in the food court and happens to be Jewish. It's a position that existed because Christians were prohibited from committing, quote, usury, a pejorative term used to describe money lending. Despite the fact that most courts had court Jews during the early modern period, the position unfortunately came with the risk of execution.
Of course.
This was because all the power and influence of the court Jew relied in turn on the power and influence of their, quote, sponsoring noble, who was, of course, Christian. If that noble died, it was not uncommon for his Jewish financier to face exile or execution. Other risks involved never getting paid back, as the Christian royalty could easily throw their court Jew under the bus due to the precarity of their position by simply refusing to pay them. And no, they didn't have buses back then, so maybe that's the wrong expression. The first Rothschild, Mayer Amschel, as mentioned by Travis earlier, was part of a movement of Jewish financiers who wanted to disconnect from this perilous court system so as to form legitimate banks. A bit of history on the man: he grew up in a Jewish slum in Frankfurt. He got into the coin trade as a teenager, assisting clients with buying and selling. Little by little, he found more influential clients, and by the age of 40, he got a big break when his client, Wilhelm I, like you said, inherited a bunch of money from his dad kicking the bucket. Wilhelm I wanted Rothschild to handle his sizable transactions and investments from then on. This allowed Rothschild to send his 5 sons, his 5 giant, round adult sons that I'm imagining looking like Vienna sausages, just packed up with their little suspenders, and they go to Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Naples, and Paris, where they start operations in these major European financial hubs. So now, as they expanded, and as is common with accumulated capital, the Rothschilds did, as it is alleged, fund both sides of several European wars. But this, in my opinion, and in history's general opinion, seems to just make them boilerplate capitalists, as you'll see a little bit further on. There's nothing about their ethnicity or religion, really, that differentiates their actions from anybody else who becomes hugely wealthy and favors profit over ethics and basic morality. In fact, the Rothschilds were basically an early international monetary fund, or IMF. which, I'm sure you are familiar with the term, listener, but it's basically an organization that supposedly stabilizes currencies and facilitates international trade and credit. Unfortunately, the truth is that the IMF helps keep in place a race to the bottom that allows the wealthy to pit laborers in one country against those in another, all to pay them less and make them accept more degrading working conditions. I actually recommend watching the Globalization Tapes by Joshua Oppenheimer. He's the same guy who made The Act of Killing and the...
Wait a second. That doesn't sound like a good video. Yeah. That sounds like a bad YouTube. The Globalization Tapes? I mean...
It's about globalization, and Joshua travels to the workers and actually allows them to create their own documentary about their conditions. And so it's about globalization, but from the perspective of those being exploited by the IMF and the conditions that are put in place. So yeah, that's a massive global grift. And yeah, so that basically the Rothschilds kind of like filled that role early on. And then now we have the wonderful IMF. Anyways, despite the Rothschilds being very good at financializing, the First and Second World War sort of sucked for them. World War I was so expensive that pretty much every moneylender in the world wrote big checks to one side or another. This made the Rothschilds lose a bit of their competitive edge and their domination of the markets. Then World War II rolled around, and the Rothschilds, who were European Jews with deep roots in Germany, were forced to escape to America. Many lost their wealth doing so. Most of their fortunes were seized and their mansions given away or reduced to rubble. After that, the Rothschilds never quite regained their pole position. They're still rich, but now they're sort of just regular rich people among the other, more wealthy families like the Walton family, the Koch brothers, the Mars family, etc. Those are actually the first three richest families in the world, and they are not mentioned by Q, of course, because they're not Jewish or Arab. I looked up the top 10 richest families on the Forbes list, and only one of them was Jewish, the Wertheimers at number 9. It kind of deflates the whole anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about Jews controlling all the wealth. So, are the Rothschilds capitalists? Yes. Are they evil? Well, I would argue they aren't morally awesome. Do they currently control the world or even the world's wealth? I'd argue that no. In fact, the world's wealthiest Rothschild is at number 1,376 on the Forbes list. There's actually even another unrelated Rothschild ahead of him, some guy who just got rich with Facebook. So that shows you that we're not really dealing with the wealthiest family in the world anymore. In fact, the family's wealth has been in decline for a long time, which is why I was joking earlier about Q scooping 1945. And there is no longer a central, quote, House of Rothschild. There's a Swiss company called the Rothschilds Continuation Holdings AG, but it has no Rothschilds on the board, and it is mostly controlled by non-Rothschild financial institutions. It makes about $500 million a year, which sadly is small potatoes at this point. Walmart, the world's largest company, makes $500 billion in revenue every year. That's 1,000 times more, and that's why the Waltons are number 1. It's owned by Presbyterians. So I propose we start a massive conspiracy theory about the Presbyterians. It's our only chance to get some justice. If you have drawing skills, please depict Presbyterians as hunched over and clutching a bag of gold. If people ask you why you're doing it, you just yell, "I'm fighting anti-Semitism," and you plug your ears. Thank you so much to Brian Dunning for his book, Conspiracies Declassified, which helped me get a handle on this. Until Q makes a drop about how the Presbyterians are fucking our lives up, I will not believe that he's anything except a boilerplate, anti-Semitic piece of garbage trash.
Since the Rothschilds, apparently they are declined in prestige for the past 2 centuries. You think the Rothschilds, maybe, are encouraging these conspiracy theories that they control the world?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just a boring old money family,
That's
right?
so funny.
They'd rather be like the purveyors of like a new world order than just like not as rich as they used to be.
They're probably just soulless, disconnected rich people like the rest of them. I'm not saying that the Rothschilds don't suck ass. I would argue that anybody on the top 1,000 list is pretty despicable at this point.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do? Like, it's just not, the conspiracy theory doesn't stick.
But when he gets that point of wealth, he just want prestige, right?
Right.
And so
that's why you dress your wife in like a stag's head.
dress your wife in a stag costume.
Got to find new ways to get off.
Yeah, now that's kind of like socially unacceptable to wear the head of a dead animal with diamonds encrusted out of its dead eyes.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have to find
unless you're at Coachella.
Yeah, unless you're at Coachella. That's for sure.
Next up, the Rothschilds took over Coachella.
Yeah, Zed's Dead played, and then they bought a price slice of pizza. And
Incredible that they're trying to bring back Simon and Garfunkel.
And then charged their phones at a charging station.
Oh, you want us to believe that Weird Al is still funny? I don't think so, Rothschilds.
One of the Rothschilds tried to use a porta potty, but it was nearly impossible. because
Pee-wee
it was,
Herman? More like Pee-wee Jewish.
It was so filthy, and his phone still had a undesirable amount of charge in it.
I'm sorry that shit happened to you at Coachella, dude. I mean, I think Jake was just trying to describe a horrible diarrhea story to us, but
Oh my god!
I pooped myself at Coachella, but I don't know how to talk about it on this podcast because
Yeah,
it's not about that.
I have 5 like really, really traumatic stories from my life, and I think 2 of them involve trying to use a porta potty at a music festival. You guys, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I have about $72 in my bank account,
Jesus Christ!
and
This is not the
we
script.
don't run. I love going off
Keeping it
script.
raw.
This is a telethon.
Look, we don't run any advertising on the podcast because that sucks and it feeds into all the shit that we like bash on the show. So we try to keep it, listener supported. You guys, our loves, our weird group of folks who somehow have wandered into our backyard party. Our Patreon is patreon.com/QAnonAnonymous. And if you pay just $5 a month, I mean, basically the price of like an iced vanilla latte from one of the places, you'll get access to our premium episode.
What about for a flyover state where they don't drink iced vanilla lattes? Or do you drink iced vanilla lattes?
No, I can't afford them anymore.
Anymore?
Anymore, I used to.
Please pay $5 so that Jake can once again afford to be a latte drinking liberal.
If you pay just $5 a month, you'll get access to our premium episodes, which are always really, really fun, and give the show a chance to grow and help us put out more content for you guys. We've reached 2 incredible milestones this month. First off, 50 Patreon subscribers.
Thank you.
Which is
Thank
fucking
you
amazing.
so much.
Like, we can't, honestly, we really can't believe just how awesome this community is. And, when we interact with you guys, it's amazing because it's just people that we would hang out with in real life. Like,
I've been incredibly touched by the community.
yeah, we all have very similar senses of humor, and there's definitely like a really strong creative vibe, and it's fucking amazing. So thank you to all our 50 Patreon subscribers. And our second crazy milestone is we've reached 50,000 plays on SoundCloud. That's fucking amazing.
I think we're officially SoundCloud rappers.
Yeah, we are.
Where's our, do we have to do something problematic now, or
No, I'm
get
about.
a face tattoo?
No, I'm gonna
time for
change. I'm gonna change my name to Young Columbus, and
Jesus.
I'm gonna get a.
Come on, man. You're not even Italian, man. Get it together.
Okay, I'm gonna change my name to Young Lung because
So
I think it's cool.
our goal is to make this a full-time thing, obviously, and we're not going to hide that from you. We want this to become like
Yeah.
our thing, our job, and we want to remain fiercely independent throughout. And that can only happen if you join us on Patreon and contribute to making this a reality and keeping our media landscape diverse and full of Travis. That is the most important thing in our media these days.
Insufficient Travis. You ever watch the TV? There's not enough Travises anymore.
Yeah,
Exactly.
sometimes when I swipe my card to pay for groceries, it comes up. It says insufficient Travis.
Which is funny because your real name is a name that has seen some relatively big box office.
That's true.
Right?
My real name has become much more popular in recent years amongst
Yes.
the young people.
We'll
Yes.
leave it at that. If you can
Yeah.
figure out this
Right.
breadcrumb.
Yeah, bakers.
This week's interview is with Talia Lavin, a writer and researcher, controversial Twitter user, and admitted Jewish person who is, quote, putting the id back in yid. Welcome to the show, Talia.
Hello.
Full disclosure, we fucked up the last time we recorded with you, and the episode basically became Talia-less because it was either that or you having about 4 or 5 lines, and then the whole interview just being gone. But we're so glad to finally get you back on.
Yeah, everyone wants me back. Always.
I'm not going to lie, we've had a lot of fans write in and say, hey, that would be amazing. Are you really going to speak with her? And so you are kind of highly requested. speaking of
I'm a
that,
cipher. I'm unknowable, but you'll get a chance to take a peek.
this all came about because you called us out as problematic misogynists on Twitter, and you asked me to bend the knee. And because we live under the iron rule of matriarchy, I had no choice. I submitted. So can you tell me now what are the next steps for me? What's my...
Well, I did tell you to bend the knee and kiss my ring. But what I did point out was that you'd had sort of a bunch of episodes and no female guests.
It's true.
And then you had Kelly Wylon, who's amazing. But more generally, I think that there is sort of a problem with covering extremism and covering the far right, where women who do this beat are sort of a little bit marginalized or put off to the side. The women who are doing this work, and I know a lot of them, they're great, wind up not being amplified as often because of these all male networks. And so I'm happy to have a chance to talk conspiracy and the alt-right because I cover this shit anyway. And if my brain is going to melt, I might as well share my brain melt with the world.
Heck yeah. And I mean, to be honest, it was a fair criticism of the show. One of the things that I explained on the Lost episode, which, it'll be like our Atlantis. We'll just pretend that there's a whole city down there that no one's ever going to find out about. But
it was beautiful. It was amazing. I was so eloquent. You wouldn't even believe it.
the spires. But yeah, it was a fair criticism at the time. And it's still a fair criticism. We are working on kind of evening that out. But yeah, one of the things that I noticed starting this out was like I just was under the false impression, I believe, that there were more men covering extremism for the simple fact that the harassment factor that would come with covering it as a female was just like a barrier for entry, which doesn't mean that there wouldn't be any, just perhaps less for good reasons, but I don't think that's really the case, actually.
I think that certainly there's a problem with major publications not having female correspondents on the alt-right. I think that certainly there's a problem with like the sort of broader press corps covering the alt-right and far right and conspiracies like lily white. I think part of it has to do with this idea, this like holy grail that journalists are always chasing, of like this idea of objectivity.
Right.
That almost like the less stake you have in a situation, the more truthful you are about it.
Right.
But I think that's largely sort of a false idol, and it sort of grants inherent advantages to white men, who, especially like well-off white men, who will automatically have less of sort of a stake in the game in any given situation. And so you wind up with like journalists of color and female journalists having this sort of added layer of suspicion. Are you just saying this because you're a woman that you have to overcome? And
Yeah.
I think also as a result, like a lot of the coverage of the far right and of conspiracy theories like sort of misses the misogyny that's everywhere in these worlds, and doesn't emphasize it. And it's really so core to the ideology that I find that to be a persistent flaw.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're so busy covering them as Nazis that we can't cover them as the most horrible misogynists that we've got around as well.
Well, and a lot of people use misogyny as a gateway.
Right.
You know, it's much more socially acceptable to be like anti-feminist than openly racist or openly neo-Nazi. And so, you know, a lot of these sort of softer right-wing channels on YouTube will use, you know, talking about those crazy bitchy feminists as sort of a gateway, and then people get radicalized.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that's often missed.
I was just reading how Jordan Peterson was at the top of the reading list in South Korea. He's making a killing over there, and
Is he really?
yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It is a country that struggles with, masculinity and has like a really intense patriarchy, and so probably a lot of fail sons jacking off and looking for some direction, and
Addicted to StarCraft, you don't know what to do.
yeah. But I mean, it wouldn't.
And I think that it's not a coincidence that that coincides with sort of a nascent South Korean feminist movement that's coming out and doing its own sort of variant on Me Too and talking about treatment in the workplace. And so you have the patriarchy fighting back by embracing reactionary thinkers.
Yeah, you don't have to quit StarCraft if you just get like a legal wife that is given to you by the state. I'm always amazed at these guys who are like libertarians and like market forces, and then they're like, but nobody wants to date me. We should have a subsidy for that.
I think someone said on Twitter, like, how do incels square their worldview with the fact that Danny DeVito gets his dick wet? Like, these guys, I've spent a fair amount of time on incel forums, which is like a sad thing to admit, but goes with my work.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're so obsessed with their jaw lines and their, facial symmetry to really disturbing degrees.
Same. I mean,
Uh,
me and the boys
so,
always
like,
measure
you
them
don't
with
have to
rulers.
have a perfectly symmetrical face to get your dick wet. Like,
Mm,
it's
that's
really
true.
fine. Like, I look like a sack of noodle pudding in a wig and I get laid.
I don't know, when the woman takes out the ruler and she measures both sides of your jaws right before intercourse, I mean, I rarely pass that test.
Yeah, it's almost.
I mean, I personally have a phrenology test, but like, to each her own.
Or why hasn't somebody told them like, hey man, like you don't need to look like Brad Pitt to get laid. Like all you got to do is like not be a dick.
No one told that to Hitler, who was essentially an incel who
Right.
thought he looked like a square-jawed blonde guy with big muscles.
Right.
I mean, no one ever told me that I could just be normal looking and get laid. Like, it just happened. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess nobody
think
ever
that
really
when
told me either.
When you get into a cycle of like disaffection and loathing of women,
Yeah.
and like it's sort of a self-perpetuating cycle,
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
we have finely tuned, not all of us, but a lot of us have finely tuned danger sensors. We can tell when someone like is kind of scary or like just
Yeah, no, that's true.
if you feel so deeply self-loathing and so deeply full of hatred, like you
Yeah.
probably aren't like hanging out, you know,
No.
ready to get laid. Like,
No, and if you spend all day, thinking these things, listening to other guys say these things, when you're finally confronted with a real woman to speak to, what the fuck are you gonna say?
you have
go
like
mute.
so much indoctrination calling her an evil femoid
Yeah.
who only goes for chads. Like,
Well, yeah.
just
So
like stare lasers at her while she's like, "Who's that creepy guy?" Like,
Yeah.
like staring at me like he wants to eat or murder me. Like,
Yeah, I was just gonna say really quick that I've spent some unfortunate time in the Tinder subreddit, and it's really interesting because a lot of people, once they do match, they have no idea how to move forward from there, and so they have this weird thing. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there's this almost like meme that goes around where if they match with somebody on Twitter, they'll write, "Do you like bread?" And then the person either says yes or no, and then they'll ask, "Do you like to be choked?"
what?
I mean, Tinder's really hard. Like, Tinder sucks. And it is awful. And it, like, but I can tell you, like, those lines are so off-putting. I, like,
We're right,
once
because you're
had
normal.
this guy straight up open. No, I'm not. Like, I like a little bit of weird, but you can tell when it's a canned line, and it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had one guy open with like I matched with him, and he was like, "Shorty, what that mouth do?"
Oh my god.
And I was like, "Curses you for eternity."
Nice.
But he was like totally undaunted. He was just like,
No.
"Sounds hot."
He's like, cool, man. Love being
And he's
cursed.
like, "Hey, yeah."
That-
I don't know. Whatever. I mean, it's hard. There's a digital disconnect. Apps are very overwhelming. Like, I totally get it. At the same time, I think that these people get really trapped in like totally toxic mindsets, really violent and dangerous, and like incel forums have straight up led to terror attacks twice.
Yeah.
So that's not good, nor is it constructive towards like getting laid.
Certainly not.
To say that it's all fixated around getting laid or not is a little bit of a blind. Like, what it's about is really poisonous misogyny.
Yeah.
And the like sex is almost incidental to it. It's like, yeah, let's just like hate and anger can feel good.
Yeah.
They can. Like, if you let yourself sort of sink into them and feel that kind of certainty and feel part of something bigger than yourself,
Right.
Yeah.
or movement or whatever it is.
If your life has been a series of humiliations, I think that the kind of brotherly togetherness of just calling one half of the human race worthless, there's something to it. I do see that, that bond kind of working for these people who feel lost in a world that is like kind of a postmodern nightmare. I mean, and they use that term even. They're like, oh, the world is so postmodern now. And I just feel sorry for them a little bit because it's true that it's, if you don't understand the language of the world, like you can experience so many humiliations, and then some fucking grifter shows you a video and you're very susceptible and vulnerable to it, and then you build your personality around it and your political stance around it, and then it's 5 or 6 years later and you're entrenched in it, and turning back is a humiliation in and of itself. We need to find a way for people to get off that train, and I'm pretty sure it's not the government getting everybody a wife.
Yeah, no. It's interesting that it does tend to be mostly men. I mean, obviously there are women in all of these movements, and certainly in QAnon you have like some prominent women.
Oh, yeah.
But I think some of the same factors are working with QAnon. Like certainty is appealing, hate is appealing, finding an other to demonize and simplify the world. Like
Yeah.
it's appealing. It's a scary world that we live in, and conspiracies are sort of a snug
Right.
shelter for the mind.
Or that a powerful woman like Hillary Clinton is only powerful because she's part of like a cabal that like, eats children and prays to Satan, as opposed to
Right.
just being a powerful woman.
Everyone knows that powerful women dress in pink leotards and take pictures with AR-16s in a depressing beige-looking hotel room so that the entire picture looks like a monochrome, and you just want to kill yourself for having even seen it. But speaking of scary things and scary places, Talia, you work in the field of extremism with a specific focus on anti-Semitism. Can you tell us a bit about how you got into the field and what that entails?
Well, I sort of got into it incidentally by writing about the Daily Stormer.
Wow.
I was just really interested in it as a phenomenon. I wanted to find out. This was sort of after Charlottesville, and of course, like I was shocked and horrified by that day. And the Daily Stormer got kicked off their server after Charlottesville, and had this sort of peripatetic journey around the web on different domains. And I sort of wrote a piece being like, who's hosting the Daily Stormer now? And like contacted their web host, like really did my best to try to figure out who the people enabling this were and why.
Yeah.
And that was sort of my first foray into this area. And then now I work at Media Matters as a researcher in extremism. And so kind of every day I look into the belly of the beast, and I'm reading the Daily Stormer and Stormfront and weird white nationalist blogs that you've probably never even heard of, like Affirmative Right and Trad News and, Diversity Macht Frei and like all this horrible stuff, which has sort of warped my brain in weird ways. Like I'm not in any danger of being red pilled at all, but
Thank God.
it just like but just reading these things every single day, you notice the sort of sectarian splits in the movement. You start thinking like, okay, like there are these divisions within far-right publications, like some that consider themselves intellectual, others that pitch themselves towards a base, lowest common denominator, some that are more virulently anti-Semitic, some that are less, and some that embrace Trump, some that are further to the right of him. So, it's like any sphere, there are dynamics within it. And then, when you start looking more closely, you start recognizing them.
And one question I had for you, because you mentioned obviously anti-Semitism, as a Jewish person covering this, I mean, certainly it can't be like being a beat reporter. You don't become even grudging kind of enemy friends with the people that you cover. It has to be a relatively antagonistic relationship. Is that right? Or
yeah, I mean, at Media Matters, it's very much like sort of monitoring, and it's at an arm's length. I think there's some alt-right reporters who have developed close source relationships with these people, and you know, probably that does result in some useful information. But for me, like, I have found it a little disconcerting when I hear reporters on the beat, like, who know about, the intricacies of the love lives of these white nationalists. And I'm sure it is useful to a degree, but then, like, I wonder if sometimes people lose sight of the broader fight as they become absorbed in these sort of surface or
Right.
internecine
Yeah,
conflicts.
Yeah, you start to cover the scene politics rather than covering the kind of overall movement as a threat.
Yeah, and of course, because I'm Jewish and because I'm outspoken, there has been like a pretty concerted effort to discredit my work. Uh, you know, I've had white nationalists make videos about me,
Wow.
and call me a whale and say that I changed my name to sound less Jewish, which is like I've been doing a really poor job concealing my Judaism. Um, and but I think, just to go back to the question that you said earlier, like, women online, prominent women, are so used to harassment
Mhm.
that it's like, well, we're tough enough. Like, just by existing as a woman online, you get the level of harassment that an alt-right reporter gets for doing his beat. It's like we're all pretty hardened to what this is by now, and this notion of like needing to protect women or whatever is like, I think every newsroom that does a beat like this should have psychological resources, should
Of
have
course.
support, but women are not inherently less capable of doing the analytical work just because we're, susceptible to gendered harassment.
And you also love conspiracy theories, or at least that's what you claim to me online. So, are you specifically into conspiracy theories, and what's your level of familiarity with QAnon?
Um so I definitely don't love conspiracy theories. I'm fascinated by them. And I think because if you study anti-Semitism on any level, you get a sense of what it is, which is a conspiracy theory.
For sure.
It's sort of the Ur conspiracy theory. It's the one that, lots of others are modeled after, lots of others take from. I'm sure that you've seen elements in QAnon that take from sort of classical anti-Semitism.
Oh yeah.
I would say I have more than a passing familiarity with QAnon. I'm not an expert, but like I kind of know what it's about. And uh, some of the big figures in disseminating it.
Yeah.
And I think it's crazy that like Lionel, what's his name, was in the White House, and like,
Yeah, that is bad. And also
Yeah.
Posobiec recently tweeted from inside the
Yeah,
White
or a
House.
Poso, as he likes to be called.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Bumblejack.
What was that? 2-bit Dillhole. He basically referred to himself in the third person by a nickname that he
by
tried
a
to make for
nickname
himself.
that he tried to make, which is you can't do that. Yeah,
He's like,
nickname must be given.
Poso's going in hard.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what?
No, all those guys do that. They all get hopped up on their fucking, on their ball juice, and they, go on national TV. I mean, that's a huge thing too with all of this, is the fact that these guys are getting a platform. Like,
Yep.
I remember back in the day, the KKK came and marched in Skokie, Illinois, which is where some of my family is from, and it got no news coverage. And we knew about it because the families at like the synagogue and shit like talked about it, and we knew that it was happening. But they didn't get any airtime. They came and they went, and nobody gave a fuck, and nobody really showed up, and like that was it. They disappeared like back into nothingness. Whereas now I feel like, how you were talking about some of these other reporters that are like trying to get close to the truth in a weird way. They're almost giving a platform to some of these guys by not immediately discounting their entire worldview as like completely unacceptable in modern society.
So, have you encountered the Rothschilds conspiracy theory before, Talia?
Yeah, I mean, it's old
Yeah.
as hell.
Yep.
Like, that's the thing. I mean, I think a lot of the sort of elements of the Rothschild conspiracy theory have been transferred to George Soros
Right.
Yes.
in
That's true.
recent years, but the Rothschilds her Rothschilds theory is still alive and well, as you know, if you like do a cursory Twitter, Google, or YouTube search for
Yeah.
Rothschild. It's that like this prominent banking family like controls, once prominent banking family controls the world.
Yeah.
And kind of goes from there.
It struck me as particularly important that there was a kind of unwarranted focus on ethnicity and religion around the Rothschilds, of course, and that would make them inherently different. We know from the last episode that you have read the first volume of The International Jew, which is a series published by Henry Ford in the early 1920s based on the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a fraudulent anti-Semitic text that we explored in the Mockingbird Media episode. So what is the underlying theory about Jewish people here, and how does Jewish exceptionalism get packaged with anti-Semitism?
The International Jew basically says that like Jews have, by virtue of their race, this innate cunning, this innate excellence at business, this innate sort of craftiness. And the International Jew never sort of outright calls for pogroms or for violence. What they say is like, we need to teach the Jew how to apply his natural racial skills to better ends. And then, of course, it goes on a great length about how Jews are making baseball degenerate and are responsible for bootlegging and all this stuff, which like there were Jews in bootlegging
and baseball
and Italian and Irish and I think anti-Semitism is sort of a unique form of prejudice in that it manifests less as like a face-to-face, day-to-day prejudice, although that certainly exists, but anti-Semitism in its most widespread and damaging form basically is a conspiracy theory. It's the idea, and it's really vividly promulgated in the International Jew, but like the idea that the Jew is in control and that the Jew has a cunning that outstrips that of Gentiles. And therefore, no Gentile could outtrade a Jew or could outthink a Jew. And, for me, what it comes down to is like we talked about how conspiracy theories are sort of simplifications of the world. And, this is a huge simplification. It's like, oh, you don't like the current power structure. You think things are unjust. You feel like you've been screwed over. Like, it's the Jews' fault.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty useful theory for the people who really do hold all the cards. Like, just physically, geographically, back in the day in Poland, it was very common for landlords to settle Jews right outside the castle gates and then also task them with tax collecting and other sort of unpopular intermediary duties, so that if there was a peasants' revolt, like the people standing between the peasants and the lord is the Jew.
Yeah.
And to me, that sort of metaphor carries over to the present day, where you have a theory that ultimately like serves the purposes of the people who really do hold all the cards, because it's just too simple to say like it's the Jews. I mean, it's too simple and it's too neat and it's too easy, that you have this sort of nebulous other that you can pin all the complex problems of the modern world on.
It makes me laugh because, there are genuinely these days huge problems with the financial system. And yet we hear a lot on the right about fake news. But there doesn't seem to be a huge focus on reforming or challenging the financial system as it exists. Instead, there's these kind of conspiracy theories about, who controls the money or whatever. But then there doesn't really seem to be anything, discrediting or focusing on the accumulation of capital and its negative effects. Instead, the right focuses on discrediting the media. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a matter of sort of how much you want to change. I think, first of all, like one of the things that I think is not understood as well as it should be is that right-wing media, I'm talking about like the Daily Caller, the Daily Wire, the Daily Signal, all of these sort of blogs are hugely funded by right-wing billionaires. I mean, they don't have to worry about click rates or, layoffs in the same way, because they have this sort of base level of funding from people who want them to put forward the message that, like, the problem is immigrants, the problem is Jews, the problem is people who question President Trump, and not, you know, the problem is power and how poorly it's distributed and how unjust our current financial system is. And
and the kind of result of the accumulation of wealth and stratified layers so that it becomes completely immovable and is kind of calcifying our entire society and economy and ability to give, like, a decent standard of living to the average worker.
Right. It's like, oh, like your uncle, gets cancer and you have to beg strangers online
Jesus.
for money. Like,
Yeah.
it's like Tucker Carlson is standing there telling you that it's because of dirty immigrants.
Yeah.
And fundamentally what that serves is like a blind to protect power. A lot of the anti-media rhetoric just like straight up plays into anti-Semitic rhetoric that's been around for ages.
Yeah.
I think that this is downplayed because, for a variety of reasons. Like, one, unless it's literally a swastika or like someone straight up saying, I hate Jews, there's often this like plausible deniability
Right.
or ways
Yeah.
people wiggle out of it. Also, like the media, can be very sanctimonious and like awful about how amazing they are, but rarely, wants to say like what you're saying uses anti-Semitic tropes, because but it so plainly does. I mean, the idea of the press as fifth columnists as untrustworthy, like, first of all, parallels the way people talk about Jews, and second of all, like, the idea of the Jew-controlled media is like really old. Again, it goes back to the International Jew. It goes back further than that.
Right.
And so to me, it's sort of like no one is sort of coming out and saying it, but this whole the media is the enemy of the people nonsense, like, does smack of anti-Semitism, and it's
Right.
not a coincidence that you have these graphics going around with like little Jewish stars over the faces of anyone at CNN who has Jewish heritage, according to white supremacists.
Yeah, and yet there's this bizarre kind of double edge to it where anti-Semitism is not called out enough, and then yet nobody can really talk about foreign policy of Israel being barbaric or something. Like, if that's their belief, they'll get censored for that or called anti-Semitic. And is there a way forward where we can accept our beliefs about the Israeli state as it is currently acting separately from, our kind of perception of Jewish people as a religion or ethnicity?
Buy a girl a drink first. No, I mean, I think it's really wrongheaded. I think there's legislation currently before Congress to like criminalize BDS, and there's that crazy story about like this loyalty oath to Israel that people have to sign in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And like, to me, there's a couple of different reasons why anti-Israel rhetoric or like criticism of Israel and anti-Semitism have been sort of artificially conflated, even though they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that the Jewish right is quite powerful and quite well funded, and have like purposefully moved to conflate the two.
Yeah.
Bibi Netanyahu has been in power for a lot of years and has very stridently sought to make that equal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then in the US, you have a Christian right that fundamentally supports Israel for creepy, apocalyptic, millenarian reasons, in which they want to see Israel in Jewish hands so that the Jews can convert, so Jesus can come back.
Yeah,
so we can reveal the Ark of the Covenant that we've buried.
Like, Christian Zionism is a huge force in American politics.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, it hates Jews. Like,
yeah, it is the Jews outside the court, for sure. It's like, well, you play a very essential role in our plan for our future. It's
right. The Christian Zionist vision, like, it hates Jews. It's like about, through conversion, erasing Jews. But in the interim, there's sort of been a devil's bargain between the Jewish right, the Israeli government, and Christian evangelicals and Christian Zionists to make Israel immune from the criticism that it so richly deserves.
right.
I think a lot of the horrors that we've seen at the border are mirrored and exceeded by Israel's policy in Gaza.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, because you have this misguided focus on any student criticism of Zionism being anti-Semitism, like real glaring anti-Semitism,
Yeah.
like the kind that inspired someone to shoot up a synagogue on
Mhm.
Gab, like gets totally ignored. Like you have people talking about like how do we shut down BDS on campus, and then like not knowing what Atomwaffen is.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's to me, it's so wild as someone who studies anti-Semitism. Like, yes, anti-Semitism is transpartisan. It does exist on the left and the right. There are times when criticism of Zionism and of Israel like shades over and crosses boundaries into anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say that doesn't happen.
Mhm.
It's just that like the danger is so glaring and
Yeah.
so violent and so intense from one side that like it feels very myopic to turn this into like a both sides situation, or like always feel the need to bring up anti-Semitism on the left when we're discussing these factories
Yeah.
inculcating kids with Holocaust denial
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's like anything else on the right. They use what's convenient.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to admit any sort of like major anti-Semitism rhetoric that's espoused by the people that they like. But if they hear like a lefty talking about Israel and not liking it, then they'll be like, whoa, well that's anti-Semitic.
There we go,
It's-
baby.
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, they do that with everything.
I mean, yeah, that was one of the funnier parts of the right trying to deal with Bernie Sanders. They couldn't tell if they wanted to call him an anti-Semite or like a
Yeah.
dangerous Jew.
It's almost like what's going on. You were talking. You kind of hit on this earlier, Talia. But it's almost like if the old saying was like the Jews control the media, it's almost like they've lost the Jews part, and they're just like the media is controlled.
Yeah, but some
And they hold
Someone
it. They
lost
hold
the
it back like
part.
just enough. And I think that
Although not everyone has lost the Jews part. Like I have to say, like what has struck me is just like how deeply prevalent. Like if you scratch any online community, like
Yeah.
especially any conspiracy community, like
Oh, yeah.
classical anti-Semitism is just there.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was with Neon Revolt. It's the case
Oh,
with
yeah.
Q drops themselves have that
it's
stuff
even
built
the
in.
case with like flat Earth. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, I was like
Yeah.
reading flat Earth, and like one click in, it's like NASA is a Jewish plot.
Well,
Like,
wait a second. Everyone knows that a giant Jew stepped on the earth and made it flat years
Yeah.
ago, and that for that original crime, we have to hate the Jews forever.
Yeah, it's like it's like a magic eye that like once you've seen it, you can't sort of like not see it anymore.
Right.
But also why didn't I get any of the good qualities of like having money, being a good negotiator, poised to take over
Dude,
Western society?
You are proof that that's anti-Semitic
right.
tropes, okay?
Yeah.
That Jewish people can be shit with money, you know?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
know, like where's my fucking bank account?
Yeah,
Flush
for
of
real.
cash? Where's my power?
Yeah.
I do have a lot of Twitter followers, I guess,
Yeah.
comparatively, like given my rather like humble station in life. But that's about it, and I daily await for that to translate into riches.
Mother dear, I am not rich in shekels, but I am rich in
Yeah.
followers.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've had like, but I think it always boils down to like, cui bono, like who does this benefit? Like who does it benefit to have people absolutely livid at the Jews and not really examining things further?
Yeah.
Who does it benefit to feel that the world is simpler than it is and that there's an identifiable enemy?
It's the Presbyterians.
And Tom
The
Cruise.
Right? I don't know. Either way. Like, I mean, I think that like the history of the Jews in Europe is one of being like often the only visible minority in any given city or community.
Yeah.
Being ghettoized, like the emancipation of the Jews, where Jews became legal citizens, like happened in the mid to late 19th century, depending on where you're talking about in Europe.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you have this like small discriminated against minority, but it's, that we're the only non-Christians around and very easy to pin loads of things on in during the Black Death, it was that we like poisoned the wells.
Yeah.
And now it's that we're poisoning minds. I mean,
well, and you also have this instance in history. I mean, most, very recently, within the last 75 years, where lots of Jews were murdered, and it was mostly overlooked by Western civilization. And I think that for these groups like Daily Stormer, any of these guys, it's almost as if they're like, well, at some point, like somebody did actually try to exterminate them, so they must really be like a real problem. It's almost this weird thing that because the Holocaust, because Hitler went as far as he did, it in some weird way, it sort of it like solidifies that rhetoric like in their own minds.
Instead of looking at the structure that
Right.
fed that hatred, you want to go like, well, why did he do? He must have had a good reason.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like the history of the Jewish expulsions, and then you're like, oh, that's, yeah. No, the funny, like sort of one of the weirder anti-Semitic comments I've gotten was like, so the Daily Stormer wrote an article about me. I got in some trouble on Twitter for writing this tweet, basically asking whether this photo that ICE, the government agency, had tweeted out, whether the agent depicted had an iron cross tattoo visible on his elbow.
Yeah.
And like I had shortly after deleted the tweet, but it turned into this whole shitstorm where like ICE wrote a press release about me.
Oh God!
I have to say that it became almost like a Ben Stiller comedy when the photo was uncropped and the guy was like in a wheelchair. Like it just made everything worse,
I know. I was just like, "Fuck,
It
man."
really seemed like a Ben Stiller movie.
I had like deleted my tweet after 15 minutes and then like put up like, "Oh, I think I got this wrong."
Yeah.
And like no one has my original tweet. Because I deleted it after 15 minutes. Like I
Doesn't matter.
Their lie that I spread the rumor on my apology, but it was a mess. Anyway, the Daily Stormer picked it up, and they wrote this like whole very long post about how shitty I am. And at the end of it, they wrote like, the rage that this hook-nosed kike inspires makes me want to go do a real Holocaust.
Ooh, that doesn't feel good.
How the
So
fuck?
that's like so many layers. It's like
I love that they're like.
not only is the Holocaust fake, but like you make me mad enough to want to do a real one.
Yeah.
And also, I love that they're like, how dare you attack this man who wasn't wearing a swastika, but if he was, we still think it would be fine and we would still be writing the same article.
Right, like how dare you accuse someone of being a Nazi,
Yeah.
says Daily Stormer, named for the Nazi publication Der Stürmer.
It's like they've never listened to Rage Against the Machine. God.
It was just, it was so many levels.
So, what do you think our current conspiracy theory scape has in store for the, quote, Jewish question? It seems to be a recurring classic, but will there be a gritty reboot?
God, I hope not. Like Holocaust 2.
No. I'm sorry. Just to clarify, I'm not asking.
Like,
Unbelievable. You finally caught Julian. You finally caught Julian at his fucking worst. We see it every day.
Yeah, right.
But you
This-
finally
it's
exposed
not
it on the
true.
cast.
When's going to be the next Holocaust?
I was
No,
not.
I think that, like you said, it's a classic. It's not going to go away. It'll find its way. It'll be at the core of any conspiracy theory and anyone willing to spread one.
Yeah.
The tropes are there. They're easy to use. And it's easy to nod and wink to anti-Semitism or even just like come straight out with it. It's gotten more prevalent in the past year. You've had, full-on candidates for office issuing like full-on anti-Semitic statements. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them won. And then we'd have, someone in elected office who, ran on anti-Semitism. I think that's still to come.
Yeah, the government would literally be exactly the same people minus Jared.
Yes.
Right.
Well, Jared would repent. Jared would be like a conversion. He would
he would
to
go
save his
evangelical.
fucking slimy little head. He would be like, nah, I'm Christian now.
I mean, the thing about there are people who are very far right who don't like Trump because he, quote, gave his Aryan daughter to a Jew to defile.
Wow.
Man, that's
You
giving a
know,
lot of
I
credit.
read this shit every fucking day.
But that's giving a lot of credit to Jared. I don't know if he could defile anything. The man is pretty meek.
How do you, Talia, how do you unwind? Like, how do you, I'm just so, I'm just so impressed that like you can go into these like deep, dark places. I feel like when I uncover like one little piece, it's like in college when you accidentally saw one of the beheading videos and you were like, oh man, like a piece of me died inside. Like I really can never look at anything like that again. Just like how are you able to compartmentalize the stuff that you're reading online constantly for work, and then like, you know, put it down and like go have a drink or whatever? Like I'm just fascinated by that.
Well, I have like a DM group for other women who cover the alt-right, and
Yeah.
it's super helpful just to be
Nice.
able to talk to people about something that like, and because it's an all-women space, it doesn't get as sort of macho and flippant as other like more male-oriented spaces I've been in.
Yeah.
Like we all can talk about trauma we've experienced and just what it's like, so that's super helpful. You know, where you don't sound crazy being like, so I was like reading the Daily Stormer comment section and I noticed this thing. And then I like I cook a lot. I find it very useful to do something with my hands.
Yeah.
And I read books about serial killers. I don't know. I'm not making
Tight.
myself very, like,
No,
I'm like,
that's awesome.
"Listen, things are bad, but like at least I'm not a female hitchhiker in 1970s Seattle."
Yeah, getting picked up by old Ted Bundy.
Ugh.
Yeah. Or like
Perspective.
any of them. I feel like the Pacific Northwest is like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like serial killer central, and now it's like white nationalism central.
And
Like,
God forbid the two get combine themselves for a super predator come 2019.
yeah, right. Well, there was this like terrorist group based in the PNW, and like based out of Idaho, I think, that like did called the Order in the 80s, that did like do a lot of bank robbing and like robbed some armored cars, and then they murdered this Jewish radio host.
Yeah, we covered them. Terrifying.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm a fun and cheerful person.
Speaking of fun and cheerful, I mean, surely you're noticing the kind of conspiracy theorization of society, just kind of everything melting into one big umbrella where everyone's trying to decode small little bits of this kind of shattered reality and build some form of reality for themselves. Where do you think this is heading for American people? You know, we saw recently the expansion into the Gilets Jaunes movement and this kind of weird, I think it is a little bit almost like the same thing as we discussed with the Israeli situation and Zionism and anti-Semitism. You're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place with that stuff. But where do you think this kind of conspiracy scape in general and QAnon is heading, you know, with these people that feel righteous anger of the working class, but maybe are being kind of led by a form of neo-Nazi petit bourgeoisie almost?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I think two things. Like, first of all, I think it's sometimes hard to imagine an era after Trump, but like, I would like to think that if there is one, like we would no longer live in a world where conspiracy theories get a megaphone from the White House.
Right, yes, that's true. He
And the
does.
sort of just asking questions tactic comes from the highest seat of power, which I think is so damaging and is so accelerated and like added so much fire to the flame of an already conspiracy prone American consciousness.
As you speak, Travis's hand is clenching around the seat. The seat,
it's
just
true.
his elbow holder, and you can hear the clicking of the chair trying to not break.
Yeah, no, and then I think I would like to see, this is my own sort of bugbear, but like I am a socialist, and I would so love to see Democrats. I don't know if it's possible given like the sort of party stance of bloodless technocracy, but like there's so much righteous anger that can be harnessed for like non-racist ends.
Yeah.
Just talking about inequality, talking about, you know, our fucked up healthcare system, talking about the ways in which American life expectancy is going down, despair is up. opioid use, and I think there are so many ways to talk with righteous and just anger about
Yeah.
the inequities in our current system. You have to be willing to like fundamentally make reforms. And that's where, if you're sort of beholden to corporations and titans of industry,
It's difficult.
it gets harder
Yeah.
to like bring that incendiary rhetoric. But I would like to see a Democratic Party that is not quite so bound in golden shackles and is able to bring some of the rage that is like due.
Yeah, I think that you're correct in thinking that the first step for the Democratic Party would be to at least admit that there is working class rage that is there for a reason, and that it might be economic inequality. I don't think they really want to face that.
Working middle, like, I mean, fuck it. Anyone who's not in the 1% has reason to be mad. Even if you make
Yeah.
$100,000 a year, cancer can get you broke real fast.
Yeah.
Like, and I think there's a fetishization of like the white working class, like, but the working class is vast and many colored. And so I think if you speak honestly and with appropriate fire about economic inequality, you can move people. And you see that with
you can be called a socialist and then have people talk about your clothes and then have people take a picture of your butt in the hallway of Congress. There's all kinds of things you can accomplish with actual righteous anger.
I know, right? And I would just like to see, I mean, I don't know if it's too much to hope for in 2020, but like, I just think this sort of like everything's basically okay, let's be decent is like doesn't really cut it.
No.
And like I said before, like anger feels good.
Yeah.
And like people like being angry. And you don't have to have like a purely negative approach like Trump did, but there are uses for anger, and I wish that Democrats weren't so afraid of it.
Yeah, I mean, if the two choices are like totally on edge and about to snap and angry, obviously angry is better. I mean, if people can find meaning and organization to their anger, and if it doesn't just become this kind of nonsense of where we go one, we go all, if it doesn't become this kind of sloganeering stuff that doesn't actually study the systems of why these people are getting fucked over, then like that's going to be a problem. But I think in a sense we are in this kind of like, shattered reality where everyone's piecing it together. We need to find a good story that is as valid and validating as the kind of angry story presented by Q, presented by Trump, presented by these kind of right-wing activists, these neo-Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are ways to talk about the world that don't involve saying, immigrants are dirty and bringing disease, or like Jews are controlling the airwaves.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, like have useful things to say and like ways to reach people. And I would love to see, as we head on into another presidential election, like some of those narratives emerging on the left. I'll be there watching the far right and seeing what they're saying.
And everybody out there should be watching and following Talia. Her Twitter is at chick_in_Kiev. That's chick_in_Kiev, Chicken Kiev. Is there anything that you'd like to plug, Talia?
Just mainly follow me on Twitter. If you just search TALIA, I'm one of the first ones to crop up.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Most famous Talia. Let's go.
One of the most famous Talias, and it's been a pleasure talking to you guys.
Such a pleasure. Thanks so much
thank
for
you
coming
so
on,
much.
Talia. I'm sure we'll...
Where we go one, I'm going to bed.
Yes.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another week of QAnon Anonymous. If you can't afford to support us financially, you can always help by telling friends about us, posting about us on social media and message boards, etc. If you haven't already, go on iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. 5 is the amount of fingers in a fist, incidentally. Jake, you're the host with the bad politics and the good dick.
Thank you.
Travis, you're the good host with the bad bitch bubble butt.
I appreciate it.
So, listen, guys. We love our supporters. We're eternally grateful for our growth and for your contributions to the pod. Unfortunately, because things are working out, the list is now like 50 names long and takes up a good chunk of listening time. As a result, we will be thanking new supporters at the $5 level once. Okay, so here is our last crazy long read to thank the hell out of our current $5 supporters. before we move to a kind of one-time call-out when you begin. And then, I mean, I guess if you're feeling lonely, just write in and we'll call you out. That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like if we go through literally like what's now 54 names at the end of every podcast, like people will stop listening to us. I would stop listening.
They'll just cut it off like in the midst of Julian saying some name.
Yeah, so here are our $5 supporters. Aaron T, Alfred M, Andrew F, Angela G, Benjamin J, Brendan W, Carl Z, Caroline O, Carson P, Chris M, Dan R, Daniel B, Danny C, David H, Eric V, George D, Harry D, the legendary, Henry L, Jared L, Jared M, Jim O, John F, Jonathan S, Josiah D, Kaya B, Kelsey, Christopher A, Linda R, Mark F, Parker D, Philippe B, Phil C, Robert M, Samuel C, Sierra H, Sean W, Stuart W, Tim G, Villa K, and Wills K. And now we want to thank our $10 contributors: Drew M, Venny S, Josh R, Adam W, Eric O, John S, Joel D, and Luke B. And this week, a very special celebration is due because, boys, we have our very first $20 contributor.
Whoa.
So thank you so much, Susie R. You will be receiving an audio thank you, as promised in the rewards from the three of us on the side. It's not for the general listening population. It's a little too sexy. It's got a lot of Travis in it. So listeners, until next week.
May the deep dish bless you and keep you. Farewell.
It's not a conspiracy. It's